Hello everyone, this is Jim Skelly and this is the Global Conversation. It's the first of our mini lectures for the spring semester in 2011. I want to welcome all of those students who are now officially enrolled in the class. We have a very strong cohort of students from both Elizabethtown College and Juniata College in Pennsylvania. We have students at the Byrne College of Art who are already enrolled in the Republic of Ireland. This week I'll be meeting my students face-to-face at the University of Ulster. Looks like we'll have about 10 students there. There'll be another group of students from the University of San Francisco joining this week as well. And further on we'll have students from the Universidad de Veracruzana in Mexico, as well as the Institute for Social and European Studies in Hungary, which has students from a number of different countries. We also have independent students studying with us from Turkey, and we have students in Mexico and probably as well in France. So it should be a very interesting semester in terms of the diversity of students. It looks like we'll have a fairly large number as well. I'm expecting 50 to 60 students in total this semester. I do want to urge all of you who have already opened your user accounts to post profile photos of yourself, to tell a little bit about yourself in the profile, and also to make sure that the profile photos actually show what you look like if you can. I know people post all sorts of funny photos. Try to actually make it possible for people to get some sense for who you might be, what kind of person you are by looking at your photo, but also the information that you post about yourself. And can I urge you to contact each other? Find somebody interesting and go say hello. You can send them an email through the course website. And we do want to stimulate a conversation. We'll try various little projects to stimulate that conversation formally, but you should feel free to go ahead and do that as well. A couple of other things I wanted to mention to you. A general note about the class. One of the things that I say about this class is that we have a very strong emphasis on looking at things from a contextual perspective. We want you to see that all of the issues that we're facing in the environment are connected. I say in the introductory mini lecture that we try to connect the dots in this class. Well, we do, and there are a number of articles that will help to reinforce this perspective. One is part of your assignment very early on. I think it's under topic number 2, and it's called, it's an article by C. Wright Mills, the American sociologist, and he makes the distinction between private troubles and public issues. Pay close attention to that because we want you to get the distinction right, because a lot of people tend to see environmental issues through the lens of the private, through the personal. And in point of fact, it's not something that can simply be dealt with at a personal level. You have to look to social structure and to the institutions that are creating some of the problems that we're facing. Now, the good article to look at in that regard is the one by Garrett Hardin, called The Tragedy of the Commons, and there's another by Herman Daly titled Economics in a Full World when we look at economic issues. We'll be posting some other articles during the semester as well, a couple of them that will also emphasize this point. But again, we want to really focus on the fact that the issues are connected. Nothing can be dealt with in isolation. So it's important to see the overall picture and for you to be able to connect the dots as we go along through the semester. Now, one of the other things that I will do during the semester, I'll try to post a mini lecture most Sunday evenings. It sometimes might be as late as the Monday or Tuesday, depending upon what else I am engaged in. But there's a number of articles that I will try to always point you to, and One of the newspapers that I tend to read is the Guardian newspaper out of London. And its environment section is one of the best, I think, as is the Independent newspaper out of London as well. But we would urge you in the course discussion fora, and you'll find these various forums on, circles where you can actually post materials. So if you find interesting articles, please bring it to everybody else's attention. Don't hesitate to post things, okay? So I'll send you a weekly email after I post this mini lecture, in which I point you in the direction of the references that I'm talking about here tonight, so that you can read follow-up articles if you are so inclined. One of the articles that came out just a couple of days ago is related to the continuing problem with the death of bees. Now, as most of you know, bees are absolutely essential to the pollination of an awful lot of the food that we eat. And there is a recent study by the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Bee Research Laboratory is again presenting information that's very worrying about the use of certain kinds of pesticides. One of which is called, and this is the one that is often pointed to in the death of bees, it's called imidacloprid. And it's produced by Bayer, or Bayer as they say in the United States, the big German company. Bayer, of course, denies that it has anything to do with bees, but it seems that the problem with this is that the bees act like they're drunk. They just, when they come in contact with this pesticide, what happens to them is they just fly off and leave the hive empty. I mean, they just, they'll fly off even if the hive is rich. And there's various other articles about all of this, but it is worth taking a look at. Apparently, between 20 and 40% of American beehives have been affected. And it's been, the same problem has been observed in countries from France to Taiwan. French and German beekeepers have blamed the kinds of pesticides that Bayer produces as the source for this problem. You might take a look at that. Another problematic issue this week is that the number of wild birds, certainly in the United Kingdom, has continued to fall. There's a new report out by the British Trust for Ornithology, and in it they're saying that there's been a 24% decline in woodland birds in the United Kingdom since the early 1970s. Now, just to give you, and there's also there's a decline of some birds, what you call farmland birds, partridges, turtle doves, starlings, tree sparrows, the ones I remember anyhow, have declined by over 70%. And the problem seems to be that their habitat is declining. I mean, they just don't have places to nest and flourish. But related to this, of course, is the problem of climate change. One of the things there was a piece in the New York Times this last week in which scientists are recognizing that what's happening is that as the temperature rises, a lot of animals, birds and other species, are losing their habitats. Scientists are suggesting that over the next 100 years, 20 to 30% of species could be lost if the temperature rises 2 degrees to 3 degrees centigrade, or that is 3.6 degrees to 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit. One of the professors who talks about this is Professor Walter Jetz at Yale University. And in his research, he predicted last year that a third of the 1,000 mountain birds he studied, or 300 species, would be threatened because warming temperatures would decimate their habitats. And then they say in response to warming, animals classically move to cooler ground, relocating either higher up in altitude or farther toward the South or the North Pole. In the tropics, however, animals have to move hundreds of miles north or south to find a different niche. Mountain species face even starker limitations. As they climb upward, they find themselves competing for less and less space on the peaks of the mountains, where they run into uninhabitable rocks or a lack of their usual foods. Or they have nowhere further to go. So take a look at that. You may find that very interesting as well. And one of the things I want to emphasize as well is that there's 3 reports out from the last week, all correlating that 2010 was the 2nd warmest year on record. And I want to make a distinction here for all of you between climate and weather. We all know, as we have experienced here in Derry in the last little while, it's been a very cold winter. But what's happening is that there is actually climate disruption, right? The figures suggest that the 3 leading global temperature data sets show that 2010 clearly warmer than 2009, and that 2010 is the warmest or 2nd warmest year on record, right? The 10 warmest years on record have all occurred since 1998, and we're getting more and more extreme weather events, and you've seen some of these fires in Australia and floods, etc., etc. And do make the distinction between climate and weather. Now, finally, the final thing I want to bring to your attention is a report which will cause those who are opposed to genetically modified food to be somewhat concerned, and that is a report by the chief scientist of the United Kingdom, Sir John Beddington, and he's warned that we can no longer tolerate on ethical or moral grounds opposition to genetically modified food, because the Earth's population is booming. It's rising by 6 million people every month, and around 2050, when most of you will be alive, and I will thankfully not be alive, it will be about 9 billion people. It's estimated that by 2030, more than 60% of the population will be living in cities, no longer involved in raising crops. And by that time, we're going to need 40% more food, 30% more water, and 50% more energy by the middle of the century. I'll try to post in the ancillary material on the left-hand side of the webpage the report which was just published, called The Future of Food and Farming. That's all I have for this week. I hope that all of you are able to fully engage with the materials in the class. I'll say this repeatedly, but please don't hesitate to be in touch with me. I love hearing from you, and if you have any questions or want to raise any issues, please don't hesitate to drop me an email. Have a good week, and I'll look forward to talking with you next week. Thanks.